In favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And if everyone, if you haven't had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from March 11th, please do so. And if they look good to you, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And public comment. Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, please. Yes.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Scott Powell. Currently, I have a senior at Asheville City High School. And I know we're going through some wonderful times, i.e. troubling times when we're talking about consolidation of school systems. The reason I'm here today is simple. There's a study going on currently, and we have slated at least $8 million at a school that has a 40% drop in population since 2017. We have another capital improvement program that's slated for Hall Fletcher, I think, next year. And they have an approximately 18.4% in population drop. I'm here today to say, let's pause on any capital improvements pertaining to schools that are showing a drop in population until after the consolidation is done. I would hate for us to put a lot of money in these schools and then find out that these schools will have to close in the near future. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Powell. Anyone else here for public comment? Okay, hearing or seeing none, thank you very much. And now I think it is time for Paige is going to give us a financial update.
Yes.
Or Melissa?
Yes. Great. So just a few months ago, we were sitting in these seats talking about FY24 cycle and review projects. So much of this will be familiar. The projects that you're going to be seeing today do meet at least one of the 4 criteria. That's the step 1 PowerPoint. Another important consideration for this cycle is the available funding. We do have 15 million capacity to fund projects for the cycle. That's what we can approve. So something to think about as we're hearing from the schools, and you'll have about a week or so to kind of ponder on these projects. And we'll meet back April 29th is when decisions will be made, discussions will be had, and we will finalize the list that will be made to the Board of Commissioners for recommendation. Quick look at the recent funding history. We can see that we've been really good stewards of this fund and have done a good support to the school systems, seeing what we've funded in the past. We'll see this today that the schools are requesting around $37.5 million, which they will discuss here in a few moments.
Yeah, I think she's,
Oh, sorry.
we shouldn't see the 37.
No, yeah, that was not on there. That's just, okay. Yep. So the funding for the school capital fund comes from Article 39. That is a very volatile revenue source, as we see a lot of growth in 22 and 21. Right now, we are seeing a decline. Things are becoming a little bit more stagnant, I should say. So we're estimating to end around 1% growth from last year. That'll land us around $28.6 million of revenues. Budget projections for next fiscal year are 1%. So we're looking at around 20.9 or 29 million in sales tax revenue. So things, are kind of slowing down. And that's something that we'll need to keep an eye on as we proceed, but at this time, no concerns on what we have going forward.
And just just to clarify their page, right, we aren't actually seeing a decline.
Correct.
There's a decline in the growth rate. But
Yes,
it's
that's correct.
steady as far as the actual sales tax that's coming into this.
Yes, that's a great clarification. So not a decline in sales tax, just a decline in growth. We're seeing it start to stagnate. We'll see maybe 1% growth for next year, so. Moving into what those revenues support are our debt service expenditures and our project expenditures for those projects that have yet to be funded by debt. We can see here on the chart that our debt service, including Labs 2024, is 26 million for next fiscal year. As a reminder, we were looking at 29 million in revenues for FY25.
One question, the 46.4 million in projects that currently do not have debt service, most of those were included in what we approved at the last commission meeting, correct?
Correct.
So they are in process now.
No, those, so our FY24 projects, we issue debt every other year. Those will land on that FY26.
Okay, so it went
issuance.
through our approval process.
Yes.
Okay.
Quick overview of the existing projects. We have about 73 projects, 61 of those are Buncombe County schools and 12 of those are Asheville City schools. 22 projects are over 75% complete per workday and 38 are less than 10% complete, with the remaining 13 projects averaging around 46% completion. Again, the $46.4 million of projects, that's mainly what we approved in the last cycle. It also includes W.D. Williams, which was going to be on the Labs 2024, but just due to its progress, we moved that forward to FY26 issuance. So we need to ensure that we have enough balance to be able to pay for the $46.4 million of projects if we were to miraculously finish all of them before we issue debt. A conservative thing that we like to make sure that we're able to cover that. And then whatever we approve this year, which is the 15, we've taken that into account to ensure that we have sufficient funds. And that is all for the financial update. If there's any questions, happy to hear them. Now we can move on to school presentations.
Paige, I'm curious, I know that Buncombe County, I know we're somewhat unique across the state, but do we do any comparisons with other counties across the state in comparison, let's say the size, the number of schools across the county? Again, knowing that we've got 2 districts within the county, but the amount of dollars spent, and are we in alignment with districts of the same size or counties of the same size and number of schools, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question that I don't know off the top of my head. That's something I can definitely bring to the April 29th meeting.
I'm curious to know.
And your question is specifically around school capital.
Yeah, school capital, yeah, I'd be curious, just thinking about if we're looking at, let's say, 46.4 million, thinking about, remind me of how many schools?
45.
45, right, or, so 10, right, so 55 schools. I understand that schools are different sizes, but if we're thinking about, and I know that not every school is, has a project at this moment, but if we think about 55 schools, 47 million, I know I'm playing a little fast with numbers here, but roughly, 46 million over 55 schools at a time, I'd be curious to see, are other counties of a similar size seeing similar numbers, right?
That's a good question,
Yeah.
but I also want to say for Asheville City Schools, our buildings are very old.
Sure,
So
yeah,
what we have to invest in them is much different than a school that was built 10 years ago.
for sure, right,
I've asked this question before because we are the only place that has this funding.
right.
And so, Tina, I feel like I asked you and it's typically handled at the elections through a bond, right? When there are big projects like this
Right.
rather than being allocated directly.
There's really no apples to apples comparison in everything.
Yeah.
Because Burke County is the only other one that receives the ARPA 39 similar to us, and the size and the statistical profile of the buildings, everything is very different. Not that you can't try to research some way about how they're doing bonds outside the GO bonds or outside of trying to keep up with capital infrastructure buildings, but there's not really an apples to apple comparison that you can make across the state for this particular fund.
Legislatively, most counties have to go to their county commissioners and ask for capital funding too.
Sure.
That's not really allocated like Article 39 taxes, but.
And my understanding with that as well is when they do that, it can impact then the funding they get for salary supplements and all the extras that we're able to provide because of 39. So it speaks a little deeper to those apples to oranges.
I mean, it's very different.
Very different.
And can I ask the question, and maybe this is too, we may not have a solid answer to it yet, but I kind of want to go and just ask a brief question with kind of wrapped around public comment. And I feel like we all like tiptoe around consolidation, but even if we consolidated, I don't know that like buildings would close. Like, I feel like we would need the space. I can't imagine that we would just close buildings. Like, is there any way to speak to that at this point, or would all of that direction come from the state after the, like, would that be decided upon by the state? I guess I just want to wrap my head around, I don't think we are, but are we investing in buildings that might get closed? Is there a chance of that?
You're gonna see a lot of detail from the research and the vendor that was selected to do the study. I think you'll see a lot of facts and research as a result of that for them to use to evaluate based on coming to a conclusion for a recommendation to the state. So
it's
the
not
state's
just like
vote,
merge
basically.
or don't merge, it will be like merge and do this.
I'm not sure really. Our task with the state and direction was to conduct a study.
Okay.
What detail comes with that recommendation, I guess is what is yet to be seen.
Okay.
The contract for that vendor states a lot of different points to consider, and some of that information that you're just discussing, I think will come out for us to look at as well.
Okay, so it is possible that we could approve money for schools that could possibly be closed. Because the vendor report didn't come back till November or something, right?
Yes, for both districts.
And then would we, so if we do vote to approve something, could it be reevaluated in November or?
Or is it already a done deal?
At this point, it's just a recommendation. That is what the evaluation, that's what the state tasked us to do. It really didn't state whether or not they're going to execute that recommendation, right? So it was a little vague. All I can say is we'll see what comes out of that study.
Okay.
And I think if you look at the projects that are coming forward here, I don't think any of these projects are actually in the schools that it was referenced into where they'd be like.
Okay.
I mean, we can look at that more closely, but just glancing at them here, these projects that are on this proposed
We have
list.
1% off the check.
You're fixing to start losing Aaron
Who's here?
next year.
Yeah, and there's no recommendations. It's coming from the schools.
Well, and to speak to Melissa's point, I mean, we'll see what the recommendations come forward from the consulting firm, but ultimately, I think we know at the end of the day, this is going to the General Assembly to have their say on too. So I think that also leaves this a bit more up in the air because we don't know what Raleigh is going to ultimately decide to do to us.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
state that very specifically, what they will do to us.
Well, and I think, it probably behooves us to make it clear to the public, I mean, there are three ways that, depending on how that consolidation study goes, there are three ways that the two districts could be consolidated. The two school boards would both have to vote to consolidate. I can't imagine Asheville City, again, speaking as a school board chair, I can't imagine our school board member would vote to want to consolidate
Right,
our district with Buncombe County. I can't imagine Buncombe County
right.
would vote that way. So
Yeah.
I think that's off the table, no matter, well, I don't know, I can't say that definitively. I don't know what that study's gonna show, right?
Right.
But unless that study shows like 100% the district should be consolidated, I can't imagine that would be the vote. The other one would be the county commissioners voting. I can't speak for that. Or the general assembly. To me, that would be the most likely thing.
Right.
But we can't, those are three different scenarios. All three of those come with different ramifications if they happen, right? There's different taxing ramifications that happen. And so for all three, we're playing with some very strange unknowns, like if they happen. And so, so I think even if the consolidation comes back with a recommendation that there should be consolidation, we have to look at the small print below that to see what those changes would be like about taxing structure, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're playing with even those little unknowns. So to the point of the public comment, I think, yes, it does, as we look at the presentations from the two districts here, it does make me think, okay, yeah, we want to have some different considerations as we look at these proposals, and also to kind of butcher Donald Trump. So there's some unknown unknowns that I don't know if I can make a decision based on some unknowns.
Right.
Sorry.
And I suspect that if the General Assembly gets involved and says that we have to consolidate, it's not gonna happen immediately.
Right.
So we're gonna have children in these schools in the foreseeable future.
Any other questions as far as the finances that page presented? Do you have any questions about any of that? I actually just thought of one. So with the 15 million, and then the plan is you all were gonna come to us with looking at debt versus pay-go on specific projects as well.
Yes.
Okay, and so will that be ready prior to the next meeting? Because we'll be voting at the next meeting on the approval, correct?
Yes,
So it would be good for us to have that in advance, so we'd have time to review that, so,
I can get that to you in advance.
okay. Okay, any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you very much. Asheville City Schools.
I'm gonna move right up here, just April and I are gonna kind of work together somewhat on this, and I can't see you guys, but I'm sitting right beside you, so I'm gonna scooch in over here if that's okay.
When Ronnie's getting set up, can I kind of stroke Ronnie's ego for a moment? And help him get ready for this, so.
Sure.
So with everything that was going on at Lucy Herring over the past month, Ronnie kind of got put on the hot seat there to answer a lot of parents' questions, and Ronnie kind of blocked the house in those presentations. As someone who complains about not wanting to be in front of people, he did an amazing job.
It's a tough crowd.
So thank you, Ronnie.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
That was impressive.
All right, so moving into Asheville City Schools request, I'm not gonna introduce myself, I think you guys know who I am. I don't know.
Hold on, we have support operations for the school system.
So April and Tim Square here and I work together daily on these Asheville City Schools projects. A lot of collaboration between the four of us as to what we bring to y'all, and then Dr. Furman as well. But so moving through the agenda, we'll have a couple of updates about some current projects that were previously funded that are underway now and moving forward. And then we'll get into our 5 requests coming up. So project updates. One that you probably remember funding, Asheville High School's main building auditorium. Again, I tried to get as many pictures to squeeze in here because I know Ms. Simpkins is always like, I want to see pictures. And I'm like, well, it's really hard to get tiny little pictures on these things to look good. But again, I have a lot on my phone. It's laying there, you want to scroll over. That photo there just shows as, we have got started on that project. All the seats, flooring are gone in that photo. Workers removing the rest of it. Clark and his team probably love to see that 100-year-old construction there, with the wood members with concrete poured between them, but, so that's what that photo shows, and we've moved to the next slide there. Yeah, and this I wanted to highlight, that people go, hey, you're replacing the ceiling. Why is that such a big deal? Well, as you can see there, it takes a lot of scaffolding just to get to that ceiling with the expansive height of it. Photo on the left shows the scaffolding being erected to get there. You can see the holes in the ceiling where the previous tiles had fallen. Photo on the right is after the scaffolding is decked, and that's so you can stand on that deck. You're about 6 feet from that ceiling, 6.5 feet. So it's easy to access, get it removed, get the insulation and things put in, the new ceiling framed up, and then work our way down when the scaffolding starts coming out. I think the next slide is also the auditorium. Yes, so that is actually standing on top of that decking, looking at the old ceiling on the left there before it was removed. And then on the right, all of the ceiling is gone and getting ready to start framing back, repairing things above that need to be repaired, mechanical, electrical, whatnot, and then framing up the new ceiling. I wish we could never
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. These things are, these presentations are due 2 weeks ago, so 2 weeks more work have taken place. So they're going to add the ceiling is completely framed up now, being insulated probably as we speak. And then they'll start attaching the drywall, acoustical panels, and acoustic spray, and then start pulling our way down with the scaffold. It'll be really nice when that stuff's gone. You can actually walk through the space. Asheville High School Gymnasium, another one that got started here recently. Photo on the left shows the bleachers being removed that had broken brackets that we discussed at a previous meeting. One highlight for the bleacher removal that I wanted to point out today, the wood from the bleachers. Let me back up a little bit. Every piece of material from the bleachers was recycled in some way, shape, or form. The steel obviously recycled at metal recycling yard, and the wood went to California to be processed and turned into furniture. So we thought that was a cool highlight to show. That's kind of a product of our landfill divergence plan with the county that we tried to implement on a lot of these things. Photo on the right, the gym floor is being removed, and we're down to concrete there. We had a little bit of some moisture issues in a couple of spots, just where we had high RH levels in the slab, but we were able to put a top coat on it to kind of seal that in, and made the manufacturer or the installer happy enough to say, yep, we're good. Now your warranty stays valid and whatnot. So no real hurdles yet on either of those, progressing nicely. Again, these photos a couple of weeks ago. If you go over there right now, they're starting to lay the new floor in. So the new maple's going in. All the underlayment, the plastic paper barriers down, wood subfloors down, and the new maple going in as we speak. I hope at least. They were like an hour late yesterday. So now we'll move into the new requests that we'll have. Wanted to start saying, we realized last meeting, with the short turnaround from November to now to try to get on the same budget cycle, as Paige alluded to earlier, the kind of uncertainty of sales tax. We heard you guys $15 million, Paige said. So the four of us got together in my tiny office because our conference room was full that day, and we started really going through the future plans for us as far as capital goes, and trying to tailor those to meet this quick turnaround and a lot shorter budget than we've had, or smaller budget than we've had previously. So I hope you see that we reflect that as we move through these. First up, 2 projects at Asheville Middle School. We've got these listed separately as 2, so that we've basically built you a shopping list. If you want to go through and say, do this, we're going to do this. I would ask when we're finished, if both of these are approved, it would be nice to have those in one budget line since they're the same site. We can use the same contractors, designers, and whatnot. So that would Paige asked if we can do that if these are approved. But so first up, restroom and changing facility at the softball field. So the right side of that photo is the softball field. You see the red line that goes down parallel to South French Broad, yeah, and the right field foul line. the thought is between that red line on the property and the fencing for the softball field, we've got room there to squeeze in this restroom changing facility. And then our water sewer infrastructure is right there in South Central Fall Avenue, so shorter runs and whatnot to get those there. So the note on there is to provide an equitable facility for athletics. You guys know I'm a construction guy, not a school guy, so that's where I'll let Ms. Dockery tell you about the school side.
If you followed Asheville City School softball in the last decade or so, you might know that we have played from, we used the field down on Amboy Park. We had a very antiquated field on the old side of Asheville Middle School. And we've tried to renovate the field at Lucius Herring for one advance for our softball program. Upon construction of the new middle school, we worked really hard with Asheville Parks and Rec and county commissioners to build a softball field on that campus, as Asheville High isn't geographically suitable to have a softball field. So once that field was constructed, we were able to move our middle school program to that campus, and we kept the high school at Lucius Herring. Over time, there's been a need to pull the high school kids closer to Asheville High, and geographically Asheville Middle School is closer. So we put a lot of energy and time with our athletic staff to really make that field our competitive field for the school system. But upon that, we are in desperate need of restrooms and changing areas. Currently, athletes have to use and guests have to use the main building. And if you've been a middle school principal, you might know that security is very difficult. If you weren't, let me just tell you, having open doors at 5 o'clock in the evening is not a sustainable thing to keep our campuses safe and clean. So we do want to do this. We also want to support our female athletics in this arena to really give them a state-of-the-art facility and provide them a safe place to compete and practice. And this field can also be used for things other than just softball.
So in the next project, same site, very similar, restroom and concession stand at the track. So if you're a racing fan, it would be like turn 1 of the track, just on the outside there, where we would look to construct that. There's a sewer line in the parking lot that's fairly close. Water's a little more difficult, but we can get it there. Currently, like April said, they have access to school for events at the track as well, or use portable toilets for that, which is never any fun anywhere you go. So this will allow both of those things to go away with the same thing that Dr. was just talking about.
Just you might know too that Asheville Middle was able to acquire a turf field through a partnership with Asheville Parks and Rec. Having this resurfaced track will just make that a more state-of-the-art facility for all of our competitors and our own student athletes. And again, having that concession stand and restrooms for our baseball, softball, football, soccer, field hockey, have access to that is just a tremendous benefit for that campus. And you may have been following that we're also consolidating our middle schools. So this also allows some more outdoor space that's safe for all of our middle school students on one campus.
And both of those support health curriculum also, as they're using it for PE and that sort of thing. They don't have to go back to the school access facilities and keep track of kids. I mean, I know a little bit about
that.
Stayed at a holiday Inn this last night. So the next slide will just show you the cost impacts for each of these projects. First one being the restroom and changing the facility at the softball field. We based this off of recent bids from the Buncombe County Sports Park restroom, as I'm sure Mr. Edwards, Commissioner Wells would probably remember seeing come through. One that's going right there at the turf field. Very similar structure, similar size, so we feel really comfortable about that. So that's how we came up with the $786,500 total cost for that facility. Next slide is cost for the concessions and restroom facility. A little higher, a little bigger of a facility, a little more infrastructure needed for the concession stand part and that water line distance I was talking about. So slightly higher, still hoping that estimate did come in 2021 as part of that master conditions assessment that the school had performed with LS3P Architects. So we did add a construction escalation of 6% per year. Those folks will probably tell you that's kind of throwing darts at a wall as well. We're going back to 21 because things have changed so much, but still hopeful that we're pretty close on those numbers. So that brings that total project cost to 1.3. The next project is the Career Technical Education Center CTE building at Asheville High School, the culinary program. So this is a very growing program at Asheville High School. Obviously in the Asheville area, culinary, hotels, that sort of thing, hospitality, thank you, and brush up on that, but, it's, yeah, one more thing. It's very, very growing in this area, so that is a very growing program, lots of interest. And they've outgrown the space. The space also needs some infrastructure improvements, plumbing, sewer mainly, I think is the way I understand it, lots of backups. Probably the need for a more state-of-the-art grease trap, something of that nature as they're preparing food. Then a partnership with AD Tech, which is one of those that I don't know anything about, so I'll let Ms. Doctor speak to that.
So again, our hospitality industry in Asheville and in Buncombe County just continues to explode. And to be able to have our own children go into the workforce is just a very valuable asset, keep our talent here, but also give them exposure to things that they may not know, being able to work in restaurants downtown and learn that hands-on experience. And our culinary program is nationally recognized. It continues to be a highlight for our school system. And we just want to really ump that and build them a facility that is safe and allows them to expand.
So the next slide will show the cost impact for that project. So the schools have worked through a schematic design or close to schematic design with an architect firm. They were able to pass that schematic design to a construction company. They provided the estimate in March of 2024 of $743,000 to make these improvements. We did add a little bit of an escalation in there because of the time from approval to actually getting to construction would be approximately 6 months. We wanted to just make sure we cover any cost differences between now and then. Then our design fees bringing the total project cost to $842,000. Next up, Howard B. Jones Elementary School is a lighting controls and LED upgrade. Currently, the school has very limited occupancy controls. A few of the rooms have the wall-mounted occupancy things that, and those, if you don't know, basically when you leave the room after 3 or 4 minutes, if you didn't turn the light out, the lights will go out automatically for you. So huge energy savings and impact to not only budget as far as utility goes, but also carbon footprint. The system is antiquated, as hopefully can be seen in those 2 tiny little pictures with the yellow lights and several lights out in the other shop. And again, just with lower energy usage for the school, provide better control for that system. The next slide will show the cost impacts to that one. So we based that off of previous pricing that we've gotten for the cafeteria only to do that. So kind of took a cost per square foot sort of analogy. Plus we had a design team, Optima engineers provided a document kind of outlining the cost per fixture and whatnot for the building. So that's how we came up with the $900,000. We do have some design fees of $90,000 to help us put that control system together to be able to make sure everything works in conjunction. Occupancy and vacancy sensors have came a long way with technology. We don't want to get too crazy, but I've seen some where you have to have a laptop to program, and we don't really want to go that route, but we want to make sure that we've at least got something that works properly. So that puts us at a total project cost of $990,000. And then Asheville High School, elevator replacement. So that's in the main building of Asheville High. When you first go into the rotunda on the first floor, to the right, that's probably easy to see that the elevator cab finishes are failing miserably. The wood is starting to delaminate. It's got a really 70s retro look to it. So trying to update that. And then on the right there, you see the really antiquated machinery that is surprisingly clean for its age. I was kind of shocked when I walked in there. I was hoping the picture would look worse, but they've done a really good job of keeping that maintained. But it is very old equipment, problematic. They have several service calls per year to get that, and the elevator is used quite a bit being in the main building. So we would love to see that replaced and just make it easier for students to get from level to level, especially if they're broken leg or in a wheelchair or whatever the case may be.
Also, that due to the age of that equipment, it is getting very difficult to find parts from that equipment. So it's sometimes the elevators down, we're having to wait weeks to get repair parts.
So again, we based these prices off of the study done in 2021 from LS3P Architects. They had it priced at $546,000. Used our construction escalation and then 10% design and other fees, bringing the total to $745,608 for that elevator. So this sheet is just the total outline of these, projects that we've requested today with the cost for each one, and then the total at the bottom, 4.783. And then Paige was nice enough to include the recurring security upgrades of the 110,000 that I leave off of every presentation I give y'all because I just forget. But, so that's in there as well. And then, yeah, so I think that is all we have for you today. We'd love to open the floor up for any questions that you might have about any of the projects or anything in general.
And then I do want to just add that we've got our enrollment study done, or actually now we've got our capacity study draft has been submitted. We're meeting with that firm this afternoon to look at building capacity. With those two pieces, those are the two fundamental kind of foundational pieces for our next 5-year master facility plan. So we're also, as we were picking projects, wanted to pick projects that were very necessary for what we know we need. And then as we look at our enrollment study, our capacity study, and then building that strategic 5-year facility master plan, then we'll be able to better go back through that long list that came out of the 2021 study to say, here's what is next necessary based on enrollment, based on capacity.
And then with these projects, are they in any order of prioritization?
They are.
Okay, so
That
this
is,
is,
yes.
okay, except for the security upgrades, of
Right,
course.
right.
Any other specific questions here about these projects? Because really, this is our chance to ask questions because at our next meeting, we're gonna be voting on which projects to proceed with. And of course, in the meantime, and that's just in a couple of weeks. It's a pretty short turnaround because of this, getting us on this new cycle.
So I have a question. I'm curious about Howard Jones. It seems like a lot of money to pay for basically like almost like a system to make the lights go out.
Yeah, there is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And it just seems to me that there would be other priorities in the other schools besides this. If you spend $1 million to save on electricity for foreseeable future, how many years is that going to take to even have that cost?
Right.
So I wonder, I mean, obviously I'm all for conservation, but as far as actual dollars, it does seem like it'd be better used somewhere else. I'm just curious why this was chosen, because all the others have seemed very legitimate. This one to me just seems a little bit outlier.
Mm-hmm. It was on from the initial 2021 study that was done, the cafeteria portion was part of that. And then the schools have been working on the rest of the school as well, because the cafeteria lots are in really bad shape, as you can probably tell in that photo of the cafeteria lots. So we kind of made that decision as a group to say, we're going to go try to do this cafeteria. We could probably benefit ourselves better to do the entire school as one project. It's not just, many of those fixtures will get replaced completely. It won't be just a retrofit, so to speak, where we would go in, take out a fluorescent bulb, put in an LED bulb, just because of the age of them and the shape they're in. As well as the controls portion requires a lot of piping work for like conduit wire. Recently, the Norwood project at IRB Jones changed out one of the panels in the middle, electrical panels, the main distribution panel actually, because it was from 1960 something probably, and harder to get parts for and whatnot. So we're anticipating probably some of that will come out of this as well, where when we get back to that beginning unit or that beginning panel, we go, okay, we need to do something here also. So it's really a little more, and I probably should have sold that a little better, but it's more than just a lighting upgrade we anticipate it could be anyway. So we just want to make sure we were covered from the beginning with that without having to come back and say, hey, we've hit problems and now we need extra money or whatever. So.
And there again, that due to the age of the fixtures, we are having a difficult time getting balance. Now we've actually replaced the entire lighting quadrants in the building because we couldn't get parts for them. We did that with also the security system over there. Last year, the actual heads were wearing out and we couldn't get them anymore, so we had to replace the entire system. So it's also due to the age of the fixtures as well. We're having a difficult time getting parts for them.
It's kind of been on our radar for several years since y'all helped us with a big project in 2018, and we've wanted to do it since then with all the new ceilings and windows and HVAC stuff. So when we had Optima on board to help us with the middle school project just last year, upgrading that lighting, we brought Spencer over to get his opinion on what we could do at IRB Jones, and it was so old, he pretty much recommended replacing everything, all those old yellow dingy lights in there and the drop ceilings, it all connects. And the upgrade would kind of fix a lot of that stuff too, a lot of the drop ceilings, it would replace and fix a lot of the just kind of funkiness of that old building in there, and just help bring it up to date, with modern LED lighting. That's also exterior in the bus alleys and a lot of our parking lots, it's basically the whole campus, not just a couple of classrooms. It's basically bringing the whole campus up to modern LED lighting.
So you also foresee a savings in maintenance, probably for sure.
Okay.
And not to mention just a better environment
Just
where
a
we don't
better
have,
environment.
you come and fix this light today and tomorrow that one goes out, so you're back over there again, and then
It's just old yellow looking lights when you get into the classrooms. And we've been working on replacing flooring and a lot of other things too. We've been upgrading in that building, and it would just be nice to help spruce it up and keep it going for another 10 or 20 years.
And can I ask, having played softball, having ran track, I'm just curious, like, because with regard to those requests, like we are talking about equitable facility use, I'm curious, do we have bathrooms at our softball fields? And I'm just curious, because
Some of them.
we definitely didn't.
Some of them we do, some we
So I'm
don't.
curious if we do now, and even when I was teaching Irwin Middle, certainly we had porta-johns, and that track, services the high school and the middle school. So I'm curious.
Some of our high school facilities do have restroom facilities, but our middle schools do not.
And but at a lot of our places, those are joint facilities, right?
They are joint at some schools, and then a lot of schools have to go back, even some of our high school campuses, you have to go back to the main building to use. Inca High baseball does not have a restroom facility. You have to walk back to the main building to use the restroom. Or use porta johns. Restroom or concession.
And then I think that gets back to that overarching concern for all of our schools about safety and not being able to regulate who's in and out of those main buildings.
And our high school and middle school will use that field.
Right.
You might not be able to answer this, April, but thinking about that elevator replacement at the high school, looking where it is on your list of priorities. Thinking about the layout of that school, and if, Tim, as you say, sometimes it takes weeks to get parts if that elevator's down. Do you have a sense of when that elevator's down, if there is lost instructional time for students who have no other, if they must use that elevator, and think about what other ADA access there is on that campus, what it is to go up around the ramp, all the way up and down, back through the second floor, et cetera, et cetera. Are there some other data points that might show, I don't mean to do your request, but it feels to me like that could be something that might have some higher priority.
We did talk about that, and we did talk about that a little bit, so that's a very good question. It was more along the lines of how the number of people who needed to use that is the third floor, which is the most problematic. And we did, at this time, we don't have anyone who needs it long-term, it's more of acute injuries that occur that people need that access. But our other parts of our campus are a little more accessible to students and adults who need that kind of support, ADA access. But it is a good valid point. We do have moments where that happens, and just for the good of the team, if there was someone who needed to be immediately evacuated, we are able to do that. We have things that can make that happen very quickly.
And we had just modernized the CTE elevator, the 3-stop cab last year, and we took that on ourselves and accomplished that. And we tried, and we'd done Lucy Herring a few years ago, so we tried and stay on top of these elevators as much as possible. This one being so large, we thought maybe y'all could help us.
I'm just gonna say from a personal standpoint, my kid was late for 8 to 12 weeks after his ACL surgery, hopping around that campus on crutches. And it got to the point with the elevator, he was like, it's just better to take the stairs and be late than get in the elevator. And it's a 40-acre campus, it's a difficult.
Yeah, no,
time.
sometimes that's the other.
It's a great question.
Any other questions or comments on the Asheville City School request?
I do have one other question. Actually, Paige, I'll start with you on this, just so I'm remembering our previous meeting. You said that we had 15, we're looking at like 15 million for both districts roughly, right? So for ACS, thinking about that, looking at almost 5 for y'all. If we're not able to fulfill this full request, knowing that I just sat through a budget presentation with Asheville City Schools last night, do y'all have some ideas around capital, whatever that fund, capital fund?
Capital Ford.
Capital Fund 4. To have some priorities about how you can kind of do some of these things piecemeal to fulfill some of these things? Or will these kind of be pushed to the following year?
Yeah, we try to use Capital Fund for regular maintenance
okay.
and other projects that come up that we have to get done quickly.
Yeah.
We know that we're always gonna have some of those projects that come up, like sewer problems at the high school, like, oops, that's backed up, we've gotta get it done fast. So we kind of try to reserve those funds for that, or when we get these projects, they always come with like, here's what, option 1 is, option 2, option 3. So then sometimes we'll say, well, that would be great since we're doing this project, we want to add the fancier piece of something, so then we can use those capital funds to add those really nice pieces that make it.
Okay, I think we're ready to hear from Martin County Schools.
Good morning. Usually we say good afternoon. I think everyone knows everyone here, so we will just jump right into it. Our team today, Mr. Huff couldn't make it, so we've got myself, Dr. Frisbee, Dr. Jackson, and Ms. Tina Thorpe here for Markham County Schools. So we'll move on to our next slide. We bring this up most of our meetings that, currently we're the 15th largest school system in North Carolina, 44 campuses, over 1,300 acres of property. We have a lot of parking lots, 200. These are just some stats that show the size of Markham County Schools and how many square feet we maintain on an annual basis. Next slide, please. One thing that we are focusing on is the difference between safety and security. There are, these two words get thrown around a lot, the difference, and there's only a big difference in the two words. So, safety in our minds, the way we look at it, our fire alarm systems, our BDA, emergency responders, our accessibility, HVAC, air quality, and separating our student and parent traffic from our bus traffic. Those are some of our big focuses in Markham County. Our security focuses are more related to threat assessments, that we hired a company to come in, both systems did, to give us our priorities of updating our facilities to make them, more secure. And what has come about that is one of our biggest projects are our lobby reconfigurations that we have received many praises from the public. After seeing these at their schools, it's kind of painful while they're going through the process of construction, but probably had more positive feedback from our front office reconfigurations than any of our security features. Also, we've been working through different budget sources, upgrading our door hardware and access control, and then obviously our site perimeters with our guardhouses and fencing. So this kind of goes back for those of you that may be new to these meetings, how both systems hired a company called TRT to perform assessments of all of our campuses, both Asheville City and Buncombe County working together. And, we made a prioritized plan, both systems, and that's usually where we use our 660 funds that we request to address some of those issues, or if they're a larger issue, they're prioritized in a larger project. The next slide kind of shows some of the things that we've been working on. The intrusion prevention, we are adding a 3M safety film to all of our exterior windows that are less than 7 feet in height. That's they're not bullet proof, but they are bullet resistant. And even if it takes a long time to get yourself into the building, and it's just saving time. You can see our access control, and up in the top right corner is a picture of one of our front office reconfigurations where our perimeter or our visitor bedding is. And in these front office reconfigurations, the first level of bedding is a bulletproof enclosure. So if you are a parent and you are led into one of our buildings, the first area where we're assessing you as a human being is a bulletproof area. So that's important to us. Some of the other photos down below is where you can see some of our antiquated hardware that we are updating, and then some where our buildings that have multiple buildings on a campus and courtyard areas, we are securing those with the fences you see there. So next slide is, again, where we focus a lot of our safety and security money, the 660 money. Upgrading our hardware, we're putting in access control where we are not passing out keys anymore. We are, providing employees and visitors, or not employees, but not visitors, but employees with badges so that we, should an employee retire, leave, it's easy. If we can't get the key back, we can just turn off the badge and they can't access our facilities. The next slide is this is our prototype lobby security outfit. Each school obviously is a little different, each building is a little different, but in theory, we have a 3-level vetting system. First, we're going to vet you outside the building, we're not going to let you into the building. So that's the first level. The red area you see is our second level, and that is the bulletproof enclosure that we're given an opportunity to have further conversation with you, and if should you need, this area has even a very small pass through. You can pass a permission slip or something like that, or maybe some money that your child forgot. If you don't need to, you just need to get something to your child. If you need to get into the building, the next area, which is kind of a tan area, that has a larger window opening that if you need to pass a backpack through or whatever. But even all of these levels, we're still preventing you from getting into our building until we've really had a chance to vet you as a human. And if you need to go visit and we've decided that you're okay to do that, then we can let you into the green space, which would be represented as the general building. Pisgah is one of our most recent completed projects, and these are just some photos of the front office reconfiguration. You see the windows there on the top left screen. Those are the different levels of vetting that we're talking about. Obviously, the size of the building and the number of people that would normally frequent that building determines the size of the front office. So Pisgah Elementary's front office vetting area is smaller than Reynolds High School, obviously. So those are fashioned and designed independently per building. Speaking of Reynolds High, here's some photos from the Reynolds High during construction and some after it's complete. All right, we will get into our list of requests. W.D. Williams has been in conversation of this committee for several years. The W. Williams was built in the 70s and it's an open concept building. There are no walls really. There are some walls that we have put up over the years trying to make it less open concept. But the initial project started out as a mechanical system upgrade. And once we got into it, realized that the building had so many code concerns that we are going to have to totally renovate this building like we did Hall Creek. So we have phase one was approved at our board this month to proceed forward. We are asking for another amount of funding to continue on with phase two. This building is going to be multiple phases to get it completed just because of the funding capacity of this process. So the overall result of this renovation project will be a new mechanical system and a building when it's complete that will have what we consider normal classrooms that are securable, that lock, when you're in a lockdown, you have actual classroom doors and classroom spaces and a more conducive learning environment for children. Our next request is Reynolds High Guardhouse on Rocket Drive. We've worked for years trying to establish with the DOT the ownership of Rocket Drive and have determined that it is owned and can be controlled by Buncombe County Schools. So since we have determined that, we plan to build this guardhouse, which actually will, we've named it Reynolds High, but it will secure the campuses for both Reynolds High and Reynolds Middle. This guardhouse, as you see, is actually Inca High. This is the one we built last year, but it will be a similar guardhouse in nature. May not look exactly the same, but it will serve the same purpose, and it will be located, if approved, on Rocky Drive. And it's an interesting campus because there's a fire department that joins. It actually is on Buncombe County Schools property that uses Lytle Lane to respond, and we've worked with the fire department, all the emergency responders, and have plans in place so that these gates and security measures will not affect their response times. But once this is complete, right now, if you go to Reynolds campus, it's a thoroughfare. You can, there's no security at all. And once this is complete, this project, it will be during the normal school day, you will have to be vetted to get onto that campus, which will be a huge safety improvement and security improvement for those campuses.
So is this, my kids go to Reynolds, so I'm familiar with this. Rocket Drive, there's two access points. So you have one off of 74A, but then you have the back way, whatever that name of that road is, that everybody uses to drop their kids off. Mm-hmm. So how does this affect that back entrance?
So prior to 8 o'clock, Rocket Drive will look like it does today. Traffic will flow like normal because there's so much traffic coming on to that area to get in, drop your children off. Once the school day starts, there will be an automatic gate on that can be camera viewed and operated from either front office, Reynolds Middle front office, or Reynolds High front office, or from the guard, so security attendant can operate these gates. So there will be some training that after 8 o'clock, you're going to have to you need to come into the main off of 74 to get on the campus to get vetted. If you are a staff member and have credentials, you will be able to get on from other directions, but it would be preferred. We can open the gates remotely, but we would prefer a parent or a visitor to come in off of 74. But we could open the gates remotely by the technology provided at the guardhouse.
So that using that gate will be at the other.
Correct.
Area.
Yeah, it won't be a 2 guardhouses though. It would be viewed.
Yeah.
You know, have two-way communication. If you pull up their vehicle and I can talk to you, I can either say, you know, you need to come around the other entrance so I can make eye contact with you and look at you and talk to you before I let you on the campus, or I can open the gate and let you in.
I see. And how does it affect traffic flow? If you've got, so you say before 8 a.m., so the kids are just coming and going, they're not being vetted, so to speak.
Prior to school starting, we would not vet anyone. At 8 o'clock, the campus would be shut down essentially. So then we're vetting everyone coming in and out, from a delivery person to a child to you as a parent. So everyone coming on campus during a normal school day. And then there will be, and these are some operational things that, you know, at the end of the day, at what time will we have to also let parents, because there's so many parents that drive, let people on the campus to start staging. I'm imagining from 8 to 2, it's a really secure campus. Maybe after 2 o'clock, it's a little less secure, but it will really improve the safety and security of those campuses.
And I'll say that is what we're doing at our other traditional high schools. Those guardhouses are in place, and that's how we operate the guardhouses with the gates at the other high schools as well.
All right. Our next request, this committee funded a phase 1 at North Putnam High School. Our mechanical system there is antiquated and causing us some major mechanical concerns. Our piping is deteriorating. Our plant equipment is aging. So this is a phase 2 of that mechanical system upgrade project. Our board approved a design build contract this month as well. And we are working on going into contract with this design build company. And this will continue to keep this project moving in the right direction this month. Our next request at Valley Springs Middle, if you've ever visited that campus, on the front of the campus near Overlook Road, or Long Shoals Road, excuse me, there are currently 5 ball fields that most people think are owned by the city of Asheville, because the city of Asheville have leased those fields from Buckington schools for the last 30 years. And have maintained those and have operated those as a parks and rec type field for the last 30 years. The city approached us a couple of years ago and said, we're not interested in leasing these fields anymore. We worked with them to extend that lease through the end of this year, which is June 30th. But our lease expires and the city has no intention of re-upping that lease for these fields. So when we found out this information, Valley Springs is one of our schools that does not have a stadium, a football, soccer, whatever other sports that, the kind of teal colored field there. So we hired an engineering company to come out and just do some very rough schematic to see if these facilities would fit. Our current Valley Springs middle students have to go, if they play tennis or soccer or football, they have to share the fields at T.C. Robertson High School. So they have to cross traffic to get over to practice and or play. So this project, if approved, would be bringing or constructing the fields in this area so that Valley Springs would have their own athletic facilities at their campus. So they would have 3 tennis courts, which is equitable for our other middle schools. All our middle schools have a minimum of 3 tennis courts. And they would have a multi-purpose field for soccer, football, lacrosse, track, whatever the sports they have. Also a 4-lane track, and it would just be an asphalt track that would allow them to hold some middle school level track meets. We don't have enough room to get a 8-lane or competition size track in there, but it is a quarter-mile track, which is 4 lanes. So that is, according to our research, enough to hold a middle school level track meet. So that is, and then we would have to, softball field located in Yellow, we would have to move that field slightly to be able to, it's currently there now, that softball field, but we would have to push it forward to get all these areas in. All right?
Can I ask, when you say that all of our middle schools have at least 3 tennis courts, you don't mean that they have 3 tennis courts that are exclusive use to the middle schools, correct?
They do, with the exception of Valley Springs. Valley Springs has,
Where are the ones at Irwin? Are they not the ones that are shared by the high school?
they are at Urban Middle, they're down
Yeah.
back behind Urban Middle.
Oh, when did those go?
When I played on those with my sons and they were really old, so I have no idea if they've been there. When you
So we're not talking about when we pull into the gym entrance. There are other tennis courts?
When you pull in at the front where the jet is,
No, not Inca, Irwin.
I'm sorry, not the jet. Let me back up and reset. I'm
Yeah.
at Inca and we need to be at Irwin.
Yeah.
Clark, go ahead.
Now you got me thinking, so,
Yeah, when we turn into the gym, like
yeah,
we're going to
there's
the
a
high
6
school.
courts up there for the high school, but there are some, hey, you've got, it's early, we should have these in the afternoon. Hold on 2 seconds there, where Google Earth is a wonderful thing, because I'm trying to think myself where they are. And you're correct, they are not there. So there are 6 courts that, both
Service
urban and
code.
high, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
That's the same with Reynolds also.
Reynolds, yes.
So it's got to do it.
Cane Creek has their own courts, North Buckham Middle has their own courts. Valley Springs Court does have courts, but they are actually located at TC Robertson.
And they're having a
And they're at
which is
the
the big
cross.
concern.
And typically TC has a large tennis program. And it's just, I think that there's difficulty scheduling those, even though they're quote unquote middle school courts, it's difficult to get those scheduled for middle schoolers.
Well, and then there's also the issue of like if you're not getting any actual city parks and rec, you've got 5 fields.
That we can't use. I mean, they're set up for a youth league, like, to, to have tournaments and, I mean, so that field's really not useful to us in the condition it's in.
And South Oakland has no interest in, you said no, like there's no other interest.
So to make sure we're being really accurate, the campuses where we have high schools and middle schools co-located on one location, Reynolds, of course, separated by Rocket Drive, we have shared tennis courts. Other campuses other than Valley Springs, where the middle school and the high school are separated, we have courts at the middle school.
And it's just a lot safer, the Irwin campus, for example, there are many shared facilities, but you're not crossing a highway to get from one campus to the next.
A very busy highway.
Yeah, for sure, all the time.
There was a question that came up in that student advisory council the other day when we were listening to feedback from them. Will the community have access if we proceed with this, and I guess it pertains really to any of your athletic facilities, the tracks and things like that. Students were saying they wanted to be able to walk on them. And wanted to be able to walk and use them outside of the school time. And so I'm curious, is that allowed?
Yeah, our campuses are for safe community walking. Yes, I'm not aware of any campus that keeps people off of their track. They let people walk on them, after hours. Now, if you want to rent one of our fields, there is a community use process that we go through and you can rent one of our fields. There's a fee involved and it depends on what type of organization you are, if you want lights to burn, yes, our facilities are available either through just, it's part of the community or our community use policy. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Frisbee and he can talk about our network infrastructure.
So to give you a brief history on our network was originally built in 2013 at a cost of about $4 million. Over the years, those 10 years, we have added everything from door access controls, security features, security cameras, voice over IP for our phones. Today, we estimate that our network is worth about $14 million. So you can see over 10 years how much it has grown and how much the value of that has increased. With that said, we have a lot of that equipment that was installed in 2013 is still there. It has come to its end of life. It needs to be replaced. And over the past couple of years, this commission has given us about $8.4 million. That has allowed us to plan these things. It's hard to plan to replace $14 million worth of stuff if you don't have any funds. It's already allocated. So over the past 2 years, we have taken a good look at our inventory, got our inventory up to date. Currently, we have spent or encumbered $3.14 million of that 8.4. We have yearly plans coming up to continue to replace that. And we need this funding that we've requested here to just keep that income funding coming in so we can plan. And at the same time, we are trying to strategically use other funding like federal E-rate funding and some state funding. But both of those funds come with constraints and requirements that we have to meet. And sometimes we can't use that money to do what we need to do to keep our infrastructure up to date. So again, this funding stream is needed to continue as we move forward to be able to plan to replace all the components of our network and keep our buildings up to date. All of those things you see there are included. We've gone, I'll take a shot at the last bullet there. The intercoms, bell systems, and door speakers would normally not meet the requirements of funding for this commission, but due to cost increase, each building will easily get $100,000 to replace any one of those components. It's unreal how much the price increase has gone up over the years. We used to put an intercom system in the school for $30,000 or $40,000. We just replaced one at Coons Intermediate, and it cost $100,000. So the cost increase of this equipment has really increased.
This slide is one that I like to, it brings to light how much it costs to operate our buildings. It really does, and that's, so this is basically looking at the life cycle cost of our infrastructure assets. And this is not everything that's in a building. These are the large items that, you know, when they fail, they cause lots of problems. You know, the lights, you know, they've been talking about the lights and elevators, and you can't get parts for them. That's reality. The world economy have ways of making you change things. They either stop making repair parts for it. We have talented staff that can repair anything if you can get a part for it. Or engineers are getting very good at making things fail. Something as simple as your iPhone. When Apple decides that you need a new phone, guess what? Your phone stops working. You think that's out of coincidence? You think they know how they know what they're doing. It's the same thing with these equipment, these chillers, these boilers, technology equipment. The world is, designers are very good at knowing we want this equipment to last 10 years or 20 years, and then after that, we're going to make it really difficult. So these numbers represent just the left side is our components. We've categorized each one of these components and have a quantity of each component and a life expectancy. And it's a simple math project. This is how much Buncombe County Schools needs to spend annually just to maintain what we have. This is not to do anything new. This is to maintain what we currently have, which is a staggering number. Are there any questions before we move into the actual prioritized list of requests?
And Robert, I have a question, thinking about this life cycle. I think on the previous slide, on the request for network infrastructure, it's of the life cycle, understanding how quickly technology changes for the life cycle of things like network firewalls and security, network security, that kind of stuff. Like, what's the life cycle of that? Those kinds of technology.
Well, it has increased. For example, the firewall that you mentioned, we've replaced it 3 times since 2013. But the current one we have is expected to have a life cycle of about 8 to 10 years. So as the technology gets better, the life cycle of the equipment will get better. The current switches and stuff that we're replacing now, that may be 10 years old, now has a life expectancy of 12 to 15 years. But as the technology gets better, the equipment gets better, the lifespan should get better.
So we start, every year, it takes us all year. We start in the fall. We send out our list from the capital outlay committee team. We start sending out request sheets, gathering all this data, all this information from all of our schools, our principals, our directors. We have a committee of 12 that is constantly meeting and reviewing our list and our priorities. And we are going through that also from a financial standpoint, looking at what funding sources the criteria meet, what are we eligible to put this in. And so we develop our list from all of the compiled lists, and we wrapped that up in March. And it was about March 28th when we finalized our process for the 24-25 year. And we put all that together. We've got it sorted by the 4042 funds, the lottery funds, the Article 39 funds, and then any additional things that we may have. So what we've done is we put together our high priority request on page 1 that you're seeing was $32,665,000. And the number 1 we always put on there is the security upfits, and you saw what we're doing with that work. For the $660,000 that we will be using for our lobby reconfigurations and security film and all that, door enhancements for the perimeter and some gate and fencing for the perimeter. And as Clark talked about, we're needing to go ahead and work on phase 2 so that we don't have a delay in timing like we did with Hawk Creek. We need to keep moving with our phases of W.D. Williams so that it helps. Phasing causes us to have increased costs, but delaying a phase to another year or so really increase the cost. So we're trying to have everything lined up to where we can move straight in and not change things around and keep moving with our phases. So we're asking for the W.D. Williams phase 2 for the 2.7. And then we showed you pictures of what our proposed guardhouse will look like at Reynolds High and what all that will do for the 2.2. We have listed number 4. Specifically, we try to do a large and a small school, and we don't name them, trying to, just for security purposes, trying to work through the upfits for our lobby and making sure that we can do a big one and a small one as well. We've identified some of those that we can do for $4 million. And then North Buckham High School, he spoke about needing to continue with phase 2 for the mechanical system, 2.5. We talked about the Valley Springs 2.2. Then we also didn't talk about or show pictures, but Clark could speak to this. We had a third-party roofing expert come in and analyze all of our roofs and give us a list of what needed to be done and how, what level they were in. And so this list came from the third party plus our roofing experts at Buncombe County working together jointly to figure out which roofs that needed to be replaced as quickly as possible. So we have added several of those, and then we've also added a fire alarm replacement that needs to be done at Hominy Valley. And we've worked really hard on these things to get the list prioritized. And you'll see down on number 18, we've got North Buckham High School tennis courts of 1.5, and they are in terrible, terrible shape that we're working through. We've got Plan A or Plan B, if this funding doesn't cover it, because we have got to get those done. And then we have, the technology, the infrastructure, trying to continue with upkeep of our technology items and trying to move forward with those. And then the next slide is our second priority request. And the reason we do this is to give you all, and plus us, we keep track of what's on the list that has to be done as we're moving through all these projects year after year and where it all falls. And as you can see, with the number of buildings we have and facilities, our list is very, very large, but this is not all of it, but we just,
Keeps going,
it
we
just
just
keeps
stop.
going. We stop because of all the work that needs to be done. And we do a very good job keeping our buildings up and in the best that we can do, given the resources. So that's why we just stop, because we know there's only a certain amount of funding. But it gives you an idea of what's coming down the road and for the future. So do you all have any questions or comments?
One quick question. So with the tennis courts at North Buckham, right, it's more than likely we're gonna have to potentially not be able to fund all the priority requests from either school district this time. It sounds like. So we'll have to make some challenging decisions there. I'm just curious with what you're saying about the North Buckham tennis courts, and those are the only tennis courts there.
We just redid AC Reynolds. We went through lottery, and we will potentially do the same thing if this is not funded here.
Okay.
So we have to move on these.
Okay, well, what I was gonna ask is, well, were you prioritizing the ones at Valley Springs versus those at North Buckham? I was trying to get a sense of the prioritization.
I think the prioritization, one, honestly, we intend more than likely to use lottery funds for North Buckham. And then we are going to have a field at Valley Springs that's really unusable for, and it gives us opportunity to create a more equitable situation for Valley Springs.
Just one more question with that. So is it that there's really this need and it was just fortuitous that the city no longer wanted this? Or was it that it's just because now the city is no longer using it and you have these open fields and you feel like you need to do something there?
I think if the city was, I'm talking from my, you probably don't talk about that.
I'll just jump in. I would call it fortuitous. The previous Valley Springs principal talked about the inequity of field access at Valley Springs, and it was shortly after that, which was just after I arrived, that we heard from the city, or I was made aware of it. And went, oh, this is wonderful. And so, at least from my perspective, it was extremely fortuitous. So it wasn't from my awareness, now we have an opportunity, let's see what we can do with it. It was something that was a need that had been presented, and the city happened to back off. And I know that you've been on the campus. There's literally no other room on that campus to do anything, and so we just wound up being extremely fortunate.
Can I ask a question about that? Because, well, I guess it really depends on whether we're saying that we want to do this due to safety, or if it's like a need for the space. I'm curious if like a footbridge has ever been explored, kind of like, I see that a lot like on college campuses and that kind of thing going over. I have no idea in the realm of my mind, like how much that even costs, but.
That would get, dealing with it, because that's a state maintained road, Overlook Road, and you would have accessibility issues you'd have to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
It would be an expensive undertaking to get a pedestrian bridge across Overlook.
Okay.
And which is,
yeah, no, that's kind of what I had in my head.
Yeah, you'd be
but I
better
just
off
felt like
on
I
the
needed
field
to
than
ask.
on the pedestrian.
Yeah.
How are students crossing right now? Are they going up to, are they crossing basically where Overlook comes into Long Shoals? Are they going farther down where the library is and crossing there? They gotta go through that parking lot over to the two seats?
I think they walk up behind Estes,
Uh-huh.
or towards Estes, and they cross near the church there. There's a crossing wall there.
And is it like staff are there to kind of help them, or is it like students?
I think it's a combination of both, and I think sometimes they're even driven across the road on a bus.
Gotcha.
Which if you've ever been at that campus at let out or drop off time, it's a nightmarish place to be.
So I, like, looking at, recognizing that you didn't give us pictures, for example, about all the re-roofing, so only looking at the ones that you showed pictures of, just doing my quick math, just those first 7 high priority, and and the priority school, which of course understandably didn't give any photos of that. That alone is above the 15 million that, the county has said is really what we have to work with. I actually don't think about a question. I'm just kind of thinking, like, since I've sat on this commission, this is going to the first year where we're gonna have to, where we as a commission will take, we're not gonna be able to fund everything that both districts have brought to us, and I think I'm talking, I think that I might have a question out of this, but maybe I'm just stating it.
The concerning thing from my perspective is, from being in charge of maintaining facilities, there's never gonna be enough money to keep our buildings up.
Sure, yeah.
Because someone mentioned earlier, our buildings are getting old. Buncombe County School buildings, our average age is 49 and a half years old. And I could be selfish and spend all of our 4042 money, all of our lottery money, all of this money just for these schools in Buncombe County. That's leaving him out of the picture. That's leaving anything else out of the picture, just maintain it. So, so we spend a lot of time and effort, like Ms. Thorpe was saying. We start in November, and basically since November, we've been prioritizing and looking at the big picture and knowing several things, knowing the capacity of the contractors in this area, the capacity of, what we can manage. And that's what we presented to you, because it's we put a lot of thought into this. Yeah.
How far along are we on, how many more years of the lobby security outfits are?
It all depends on funding. We have completed 5, so we got 40 more to go.
So my question then is, how much of this stuff do we pay cash for, and how much does debt service?
So we presented that information when we submitted our request to count or to Page. We documented whether or not we felt like the life cycle, how long we felt like a life cycle was of the request. And then I think Page's team is going to work through that and provide y'all a recommendation.
And Lauren, how much is pay as you go, or how much is debt service?
And I think you'll see a combination. That's something y'all are going to work on.
So that'll tell us what the real number is that we need to come up with.
I think it's still going to be 15 million.
I guess what I meant was what we could actually get done with that 15 million. It'll answer that.
So if we work backwards from the numbers, like we're saying 15 million, and that is like what we stay at, and if we, let's just say we worked like proportionally, like based on student allotment. I know that's not the way that's not the way the rules lay out anymore, but if we did, and so we're talking about like a little under 13 million for Buncombe County Schools. Truly, if we work down the list till we get to 13 million, in your minds, based on the meetings that you guys have had, this is truly the order? Okay, because we would stop, we would get to basically like number 5, essentially, 5.5.
I was
Hopefully
crunching
do
the
6.
same numbers.
Yes, that's what I do. To be clear, I don't think it would quite get us to
We would hope
6.
to do 6.
But I'm curious, if you would choose the the athletic field renovations over the network infrastructure.
Yeah, no, that's
That's,
We're.
like, can we make it another year?
So yes, I would like to answer that. As he stated when he first started, we have been awarded 8.4 million. We're working through that. We're trying to plan ahead. We have some time because we've used 3.1 of the 8.4, but we have plans for all of it and more. But timing and when we can get things and keeping it on the radar, because we have to have it in the future for sure. But we're working through this very strategically, yes.
And none of those top 6 could be, could have a possibility, or they would just be like a total long shot for lottery funding.
Oh, no, we don't have that kind of.
Our lottery is going to be consumed with number 18 and then one other item that we're working on.
Yeah.
And
I guess
you know,
in my
one-
head, really what I was like wondering if number 6 could be.
We will not have that funding available.
One thing that has changed this too, just to throw that out there, and Bonnie spoke to it earlier, you know, changing this timing of the cycle has changed a little bit of the request this year than normal. But I think it's going to be great moving forward. It's just put a little bit of a kink in the plan. But, you know, keeping these phase projects moving is imperative. Because financially, when you stop a project that's under contract and have to remobilize and all that, it's costing a lot of money.
Following up on the lottery question, that pitched that over to Asheville City Schools as well. Did any of these projects that you presented today, are lottery funds available for any of those? Just so we can compare the two.
We're finishing out the phases with the baseball field of the Asheville High campus, and that is exhausting the rest of those. It's the final phase of that project. Am I correct?
I think so.
On the recommending projects page, so page 5, where it talks about criteria. So those are the only 4 criteria, so correct safety and health concerns, comply with legal requirements, maintain lowest life cycle costs, improve the educational environment. So with regard to like I'm like going back to the bathrooms, but I am curious, so are we calling that a safety concern? Is that where?
It should be a list of the, maybe the last.
It's called it equity, like on the.
Where the schools determine.
I know, but I guess, I know, I get that it's equity, but my question, but like that wasn't under our criteria. Like and so that's why I'm asking, because I'm asking, I guess, do we need to add equity to our criteria, or like what specific criteria are we saying that falls under? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, we do.
Those are on the CIP table, right?
The general statute, I'm sorry, but the general statute pulls those out uniquely, is why we have to go by those.
Right.
It's not in the general statute.
Right.
And I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so I guess I like following these, because these are what we need to be following. I'm just trying to piece together where we're saying that falls in. And I'm certainly not saying that we shouldn't do it. That's not at all what I'm saying. I just want to know where we're falling in when we're looking at the specific criteria items.
Well, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but thinking about legal requirements and.
Wow.
Trying to read a small table.
You know, I don't know.
Can we just,
Is it possible that like somebody could bring a Title IX complaint?
that's what we were gonna say. It's also gonna comply to.
Yeah, could somebody bring a Title IX complaint against the school?
Well, then we're all screwed.
Right.
We don't have,
I know.
we don't have.
I mean, I don't need to bring that up.
Right.
Like, is that possible?
So we're saying, because, so is there a middle school baseball field that does have facilities?
It's
That's
the
why we're saying.
female, male sports. The high school teams do. The female softball team does not have equitable space to the male baseball field.
High school.
But yeah, but I thought this was at the middle school.
But that's where our high school softball team plays.
Oh, I got you. And so with regard to the track, are we saying that that's Title IX as well? with regard to that second one, the concession stand and the facilities.
No, the facilities in the track, concession stand are more of a safety issue. We've had some people break into our building because doors were left open and done some damage, caught some roofs.
Okay.
But the softball field is a legal requirement. We got it, we need to be mindful of that.
So let me follow up on that, because I'm looking in the very back, appendix, where it checks off which requirements it meets.
What page is that?
It's in the appendix toward the
I think
very
it's
end,
second
and,
last.
I have it shared as well, but it's small.
it's really small. So it does say, you'll have checked off that oh no, this is why it's tiny. Never mind, I need magnifying glass, answer my question. I was reading the first middle school softball field as the legal requirement, but not the concession and restroom facility. I was crossing my eyes this morning. You might be right, Barb.
Because of light, they turned the lights back on.
I'm trying to adjust it. Sorry about that.
Hey, could you clarify where you're getting the 15 million from? Why is it 15 million?
Yeah, the 15 million was determined based off of fund balance available. We also have that $46 million of projects that we have to flow until the next debt issuance, which isn't happening until FY26. So the 15 million is just based off of what we kind of have left to spend in a conservative manner. So we'll be able to fund $15 million of projects. Don't worry about cash or debt, like we'll take care of that on our side of what projects will be cash removed and debt finance. But we just need to determine which projects under 15 we're at.
And so with the 15 million, because often, right, when we're doing the debt, sometimes we're leveraging those funds to go out for debt, and we're actually been able to do more than our fund balance. So I think that's where we need some clarity too.
This is true.
And so usually, we have this breakdown and it shows all the data, and then we have that amount, and then we've been able to use some of that to leverage. And so that's what we're used to, so I think that's part of the confusion with the 15 million. You're saying 15 million is literally only 15
Yes, yes.
when we look at all these projects.
Yes, because we're also considering what our debt service is going to be going forward, future projects that are on this list that we'll need to fund, which we're not trying to do years where we're not able to fund any projects. So that's also built into what our debt service projection will be, including what the revenue against will be, trying to keep that in a reasonable, sustainable space. That's why that 15 million is the capacity.
I think it would be good for us also when you send us this other information is to send us that chart like we're used to seeing too, so we're able to kind of see, because we're able usually to look over the long term and see like, these are the projects that we're doing, right? And it shows over a span of years, kind of before. And I think that's part of this is since we don't have that information in front of us. And I know we're doing it differently this year, so there's a lot of changes. But that's why I think some of the questions are coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll include that.
Because in the past, right, we've looked at, I don't have it in front of me, but what was the projection, like 21 million, we look at that and see everything, and then to kind of make a judgment. Which we can't, and I know we decided to go with the debt and the go, but it's still useful for us to be able to see those numbers.
Sure. So if you'll refer back to the presentation from the financial update, that page presented some of the information on our expenditure slide. And it shows where we're existing debt service, that means the debt we've already issued. And then an estimated debt service for projects that we've approved, but we have not yet issued debt for. If you'll compare those debt service projections to our revenue projections, we're getting very close. So this 15 million is derived from a sustainable future for us, for this funding source, based on where our revenue projections are taking. So we've already approved a great deal of projects, totaling like 40-something million. Well, we're committed to delivering this project with funds, right? So we're working with what funding source we have. So I know it seems like a slim pickings, but we've got to make sure that we stay whole with the fund.
I think it's just shocking after having 40 million
Yeah.
to 15, which I'm just gonna say, I raised that question last cycle of do we wanna allocate all 40 million? Because it's gonna mean we have less in the future, and I think we're facing that harsh reality right now, that this is what we have in comparison to previous years.
And it's fine, I just think we need to have, like, make sure that we're really clear because there is a difference there. And we do know that changing everything going on this cycle, there's gonna be some challenges this year. We're all aware of that, we had that discussion. Okay, any other questions? Did you get your questions answered for Rockland County Schools on those projects? Were there any other questions for them? Any other questions? And I guess this is one thing, because we do have a very short turnaround time of 2 weeks here to make these decisions, which is really a crunch, so we need a little longer. So I would recommend if anybody does have specific questions or want to see, actually go on site, get with Rockland County Schools, Asheville City Schools quickly, to get out there and look at any of those projects. I guess one question, just to give our staff some direction, are there any specific of the projects that give you any heartburn that our staff should be aware of when they're running their numbers? Is there anything that stood out from either list with that?
Are you asking us or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yes, the board. Because staff's gonna run some numbers, right? They're gonna look at it and they're gonna make some recommendations with the dead and the pay-go. And they can run a few different scenarios for us, but that's why, if there are any specific projects that give you heartburn, it would be good for staff to know.
Well, I mean, I think the thing that certainly frightens me is like looking at all the roofs that we need. I don't know, it just, I guess I'm like, how do we even catch up? Because ultimately, like, that is the situation that we're in, from a district standpoint. I don't know. Really,
And to answer your question, or to make you understand why we didn't prioritize those high,
yeah,
we have enough roofing funding right now that the capacity of Parkland County can handle
got you,
the contractors. So we didn't want to ask for more money and not be able to use it. The money we're asking for
is what we can use
we
right now.
can use right now.
And we have people.
We are
working on
actively
those projects.
re-roofing and using the money we have. It's there.
Are
Trust
any
me,
of
stresses
these
me out
We
too.
funded a lot last year, so they're
Yeah.
able, with what all we funded this past year, they've got all that work in progress.
On the high priority list, well, really on both, as far as roof goes, are any of those roofs that got solar panels on them?
No.
Thank you.
We only put the solar panels on our new metal fitted seam roofs.
Got it. Thank you.
And I would assume based on your priority, and I know this is a new timing this year, that we will potentially see some of these roofing projects next time move up.
Oh,
So this
sure.
gives us kind of a roadmap for what to expect the next
That's-
cycle.
That's why we do that. This is a roadmap of what's coming and, technology. We're trying to work through all of this from all standpoints of what's coming and how much timing we have, and how much capacity we have, and looking at it from that whole strategic point of everything.
I
This
think
list
from
is a
my
lot-
point, this is
it's a lot
incredibly
longer.
helpful to know what to expect, and also knowing that there may be something unexpected that pops up.
Yeah,
We have to
sure.
hold.
Yeah, we'll slide some things in that we didn't realize as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we try to plan this does, I think.
I think there's a lot of side conversations happening right now, Chair Willow, and I think we're missing potentially some potential important information that we probably should all be hearing from all sides. They were just speaking to the fact that these roof projects and some of these others are the roadmap to the future, and then we'll start to see them up. But I know there were some things happening down here, and I'm afraid maybe we missed those questions in conversation.
I think everybody got that.
Okay.
Everybody's clear on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so are there any other questions or directions for staff? Okay, then we'll definitely follow up with the schools directly. We want to get out and look at any specific projects. And if anything comes up that we need to direct staff with, just let me know, reach out to me. Any other questions or comments from either school districts or our staff? Okay, wonderful. Thank you all very much. A lot of information. I know we have a lot of work to do over these next 2 weeks to make challenging decisions. So thank you staff for all your good work and for the presentations. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much.